Hosting for the Dice Tower is generously provided by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com. Thanks for your support. The Dice Tower, episode 449.
The Dice Tower, episode 449. That was bigger and better.
Oh.
The second time through. Reprints!
Hey. Welcome to the Dice Tower, a podcast about board games and card games, and especially the people who play them. On today's show, we answer questions from the mailbag, including suggestions for a board game-themed birthday party, and the etiquette of asking your friendly local game store for a discount. Plus, we celebrate new versions of our favorites with our top 10 reprints. I'm Eric Summerer, and here's your host, the Garfield to my John, Tom Vassell.
Okay, that has to be the biggest in-joke you've done.
Okay. Maybe a little bit.
You need to explain to everyone what you're talking about there. I actually know this time, though.
You do know. Well, so if you were listening last week, we had to eliminate a good portion of Tom's track due to a technical glitch, and it ended up sounding like, I said this on Board Game Geek, it was sort of like an audio version of Garfield minus Garfield. And if you know that comic series, it's reprints of the Garfield comic strip where Garfield has been digitally removed, and it's just John Arbuckle talking to himself. And I felt a little like that last week.
I'll tell you what, that comic is, like, fascinating. You're like, that's stupid.
No, it's pretty cool.
And then you read it, and you're like, wow, this is really sad.
John
is a disturbed... I mean, he's a disturbed man anyway, right?
Yeah.
And it actually makes Garfield relevant because Garfield has been relevant for, 15 years? They just keep repeating the same jokes. But
it is a pretty funny series.
Yeah, it's really weird, though. It's just this man running around the house. It's a fascinating thing. What's it called? Garfield minus Garfield?
I believe that's the case. If I'm wrong, future Eric will fix it.
Yeah.
Again.
We should talk sometime, like a segment like our favorite webcomics. What do you read besides Garfield minus Garfield?
I occasionally... I used to check in on Penny Arcade pretty regularly, but as my video game experience has become farther and farther away from the cutting edge, I don't know what they're talking about anymore. So I sort of stopped.
I've always found them too strongly vulgar for no reason at all.
They can push. It's a little like South Park in that way, that they can have a terrific point, but then they decide to push it a little too far in that direction.
I think the one I still read Order of the Stick and Goblins, although both of those feel, I guess, I don't know if they're ever going to finish their storylines at this point. I'm like sticking through, like, you can do it, guys. XKCD. Do you read that one?
I do like XKCD, but I usually only jump in when friends share individual strips.
Well, probably they have like an alternate comic now. It's called What If?
Okay.
He answers, it's called What If? Serious Scientific Answers to Absurd Hypothetical Questions. And so he'll take a question and, you know, like, for example, can you use a magnifying glass and moonlight to light a fire? Or how long would it take a single person to fill up an entire swimming pool with their own saliva? And then he takes and answers these with, like, formulas and all sorts of things. Like, what if everyone in China jumped up and down at the same time? What would actually happen? And these are questions which I need to know the answers to.
Yes, of course you do.
And he does it with his little stick figures and stuff. But it's really well done. It's probably my favorite comic that I read at this point. He doesn't do it too often. I want to say once every couple weeks, but it's good, and there's a good archive.
Nice.
So anyhow, actually, there's a lot of webcomics that I read every once in a while. I usually I save them up, and then I'll be like, I'll hit the webcomics, and then read 10 or 11 in a row.
Wow.
All right. But this is about games. Folks, my name is Tom Vassell.
Hi, I'm Eric Summerer.
Now, folks, if you've been thinking about going on a Dice Tower cruise...
I have been thinking about going on the Dice Tower cruise.
We, as of this recording, have 65 rooms left. which is not a ton of rooms.
No.
And so I know the prices are going to go up soon because when we reach a certain date, I don't know what that date is, but that we're going to have to raise the prices because they're going to get raised on us by the cruise line. But grab them when you can because I really do think the cruise will sell out. So if you're, debating on it, some people are debating on it because of money. And I completely understand that, conventions are expensive. However, a cruise is not much more expensive than another convention. In fact, I would argue that it's cheaper.
Yeah, and there's a lot more included when you get your cruise ticket.
Right, because with a cruise ticket, you're paying a little over $100 a night for that ticket, and that covers all your food, which is literally all you can eat. You could, just never stop eating.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't play any games.
Right. It includes the gaming rooms that we have. We have multiple rooms to play games with, and you're hanging out with a lot of people. And, Eric, I was looking over the list, and it looks like I'm just guesstimating, 40% of women. I was pretty happy with that.
That's awesome. Excited.
I think it's because a lot of couples are coming, right? But that's
true.
That's fantastic. And so I'm looking forward to that. And you get to spend time with people, and there's lots of things to do on a cruise ship. If you get bored with games, there's always something going on. Ice skating, swimming, I didn't think a cruise ship would be that interesting, but when I went on one, I was like, I was never bored. And if I was bored, I wasn't bored because I was sitting there watching the ocean.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've never done one. It's going to be fun.
Yes, so if you're interested in that, DiceTowerCruise.com. Jason Levine is planning the whole thing out, so he can answer any questions you might have. Speaking of convention, Eric, did you see BGG Con sold out in 2 hours?
Yes, I did. That was impressive, and a lot of unhappy people. Sort of reminds me of when the Dice Tower Con tickets went on sale a few months ago. I have to think this is a good sign for the industry that demand is still increasing for these events. Although it's frustrating if you've been going to BGG Con for several years and weren't able to get tickets this time.
Yeah, and I think this frustration is going to happen at every convention. Every
heading that
convention
way.
is selling out. The big conventions aren't selling out, but the hotel space is selling out. The Gen Con hotel space sold out in a couple hours. The Origins hotel rooms space sold out. And so there's more people going to all these conventions. So just keep that in mind. If you're planning to go to a convention, you really need to plan early. You need to be ready. You need to sign up when it goes live. Because they're all heading in that direction.
It really does seem like it's almost impossible to go at the last minute to a lot of these things now.
You can go last minute to a big convention, I guess, but you're going to stay at a hotel room that's 30 minutes away or 15 minutes away.
You have to drive in and park.
Or maybe you found someone who's willing to share a room at the last minute. There's that, too. Speaking of conventions, 1 p.m. Friday at Gen Con is our live show.
1 p.m. Friday.
Yep.
Okay.
That's when we could and you know why it's at that time? Because we got the 1,200 seat room.
We got the big room. Is this the 500?
No, the 1,200.
It's room number 500. It's in the main convention center.
Yes, that room.
Awesome.
I'm very excited about that.
Oh, boy.
We probably could have fit 1,200 last year with how many people wanted to come. Hopefully there's enough room for everybody who wants to come. But I would still recommend when they open registration, which isn't until May 15th, I believe.
Okay.
But still, folks, if you're wanting to come, make sure you sign up for that. We'll make it – I can't promise it'll be the best show ever, but it will be better than last year's show.
Oh, boy.
I wasn't happy with last year's show.
Okay, well.
We can do better.
We'll get working on that.
So, well, that's all of our announcements and stuff. And, I guess the biggest announcement before we jump into this, we are at Gamma.
Yes.
Now.
Yeah, right now. And you could be watching a live stream during the day. Tomorrow, maybe, or today.
Well, it could be the night if they live in a different country.
Maybe. Anyway,
check out DiceTower YouTube channel. We're going to be streaming live on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday during the day, Eastern Standard. Mountain Standard Time.
Actually, I think we're West Coast. We're Pacific Time.
Pacific Standard Time. I know what I'm saying. So anyhow,
this is a great start.
Yes, there's lots of stuff going on. We're going to be recording it and posting it later, too, in case you miss it. But if you want to come in and ask questions, I'll be there. Eric will be there. Sam, Healy, Z Garcia, Chaz Marler, Suzanne Sheldon, and Jason Levine. And designers and publishers and people telling us about new games coming up and games that are coming out this year. So if you want to find out, we will be talking about that. In fact, our next podcast, episode 450, which I didn't plan this way, is just going to be a special podcast of various things that you will hear from that show.
Mm-hmm.
This always worries Eric.
Yes, when we don't have a plan, yes.
I have a plan in my head.
Well, good. I can't read that.
Yes, but this makes up for you doing like the whole episode by yourself last time.
Yeah, but I didn't. We actually recorded a show with the two of us, and then I just removed you later.
Again, improvement, I heard.
But
all right, let's get to some games. You're first.
First up for me is a game called Paradox, which is one I was very excited to play because I got to play an early version of this almost 2 years ago at Origins. This is the latest from Split Second Games. Paradox is a sci-fi themed, time travel themed match 4 mechanism game. You have a grid of tokens in front of you, and you are swapping these things to create patterns of 4 and 5, for lack of a better term, gems, which then give you resources that you assign to cards to try and claim them. There's actually a little bit more to this. There's this time travel theme, and each world in this universe has a past card, a present card, and a future card, as well as a nexus card, all in the deck. And these cards will come up, and you will do a drafting phase at the beginning of each round, and you will draft some of these cards. Whoever the start player is gets to even look at some of the future cards and maybe take one of those or 2 of the face-up cards, and you assign these to your board. The past cards have 1, 2, 3, 4 turns to be able to deal with them. The present cards, you have 3 turns to deal with them, and the future cards have 2 turns to deal with them, because at the end of your turn, they're going to slide along the conveyor belt and head toward oblivion, and you have to actually claim them, get the resources to claim them before they fall off your board. Again, you do this with the match 4 mechanism. Each of your turns, you're going to get to swap 2 gems on your board. If you make combinations, you get 1 or 2 resources to assign to your cards. You can also swap with sort of some gems in the center to make things a little bit easier. And then you refill your board and maybe do your second move or pass on to the next turn. So you're acquiring cards, trying to match the gems, assign resources, and then claim these cards. At the end of the game, you're going to get points based on how many of a set you have. If you only got 1 of a particular world, you'll get 1 point. If you get 2 of them, you get 4 points. Then it's 6 points. No, 1, 3, 6, and 10 points. If you get all 4 of these cards, because these Nexus cards, I didn't talk about those, they lock one of the gems on your grid. So I pick up the N Planet Nexus card, and it locks this particular thing, and now I can't move that gem. I can't, gems can't cascade past it. And so the more of these you get, the harder it is to make things happen on your board. As you claim cards, some of these worlds will disappear from time-space. That's not good because you can't score points for a world that doesn't exist on the space-time continuum. So you also have to spend some of these resources to shield these worlds, flip them back over if they have faded from existence, and also plan for your opponents to maybe send this cosmic storm toward a planet you've been collecting and causing it to cease to exist. It's a fun time. It's a little fiddly. I think by its nature, you're filling in these grids, having to pull them from a bag, putting them back in. Once you get the hang of it, there's a sequence to your actions that if you get into the sequence, it's not too difficult. But if you skip a step, like I use all these gems and I put them in my little discard pile and then I forget to add them to the bag and I don't notice until 2 other players have gone, well, all those gems have not been in the mix for the past couple turns, and that's not really cool. I've enjoyed the improvements they've made to the game since I saw it last. They added some sort of bonus cards. There's scenario cards that get shuffled into the deck, and you pick 1 or 2 of these to go in, making the game play a little bit differently, adding a little twist as these cards come up or as these chips are drawn. I'm very happy with the final product. It can be a little tricky with the fiddliness of moving through all of these gems and tokens and making sure everything's where it's supposed to be. So a little bit of a warning there, but I still really like the game. I like the mechanism. I like the puzzly nature of it, and trying to figure out how to complete your cards with the time you have and with the moves you have. It's a lot of fun. Paradox from Split Second Games. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention, the art style is really cool because each of these planets is illustrated by a different artist in a different style. And I mentioned it's past, present, future. And so you'll have a planet that may have some, green aliens, and then there's sort of amoebas in the corner. And then the present card, those amoebas are now the dominant species, but there's some other group in the distance. And then the future card, that new group is now the dominant species on the planet. Really neat artistic decisions made in the past, present, and future of these different planets. Cool art design. Thumbs up.
Now, Eric, you mentioned you like the artwork in Paradox?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I just want to clarify that because just for later purposes.
Oh, great.
Hey, Eric, have you ever wanted to play a Rondel game by Matt Gertz?
Of course I have.
What if I took the game away and you just played with the Rondel?
Is it still by Matt Gertz?
It's not.
Oh.
We're talking about Crown and Kingdom. This is from Rio Grande Games. And I was looking at this on Cool Stuff and going, I never even heard of this game, which is not surprising because Rio Grande just does not promote their games very well.
No.
They're like, oh, yeah, by the way, we released a new game. When? Yesterday. Oh. When were you going to tell us?
Uh-huh.
We just did. So anyhow, I was looking at it thinking, I don't know. Maybe it didn't look very interesting. It's, Crown and Kingdom. Shows a bunch of guys looking at a map on the front. Again. Seriously, people need to stop looking at maps. But while I was thinking about whether I should get it or not, it showed up in the mail. So huzzah! So, like I said, it's a rondel game. It's a big rondel. And you have several pieces that you're moving around in this rondel. You're going to move them in a clockwise fashion. And on your turn, you pick one of your pieces. You count the total number of pieces of all players in that area they're in. And that's how far you move. So if I have a knight in a spot where there's 4 people, including the knight, that knight moves 4 spaces clockwise. Then each of these pieces you move has a different special ability. A knight captures an opponent's piece and removes it from the board. A merchant gives you 1 coin for every person in this spot that you've moved to. A thief steals money from the person that's in the spot you moved to. A writer can take a special ability that's on the area that you went to. And the duke, or duchess, because all the pieces have a flip side that shows a male and female, except for the knight. They're both wearing a suit of armor, which I thought was hilarious. Because the knight wears a suit of armor, so you can't tell what their gender is. So on the male and female sides, it's the exact same picture.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm all cool with that because I would assume a female knight would want to wear armor also.
Yes, and it's not the stereotypical female armor.
Yeah, so anyway, I don't know. That's a minor thing. I hate the rest of the artwork of the game, really. It's not that impressive, but I thought that was funny and makes me laugh every time.
Sure.
But anyhow, the Duke, when they land on a spot, if you also have the majority of people in that spot, you put a control marker on that spot. Not a control marker, but like an influence marker. And the first person to get an influence marker on every spot wins. You also, at the beginning of your turn, can spend money to take a special action. Like I might move my piece counterclockwise this turn, or I might move them 1 less than I normally would. Or the Duke can use a special action without having a majority. And there's different actions you can take. Oh, yeah, I can bring back someone the knight has captured onto the board, which you'll do if you're like running out of people. And you just keep going till someone has an influence marker in every single area, and that person wins. It's a fine idea for a game, but it's a rondel. It's not very inspiring. And it goes a little longer than it should. And it feels like it's from 1995. It doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't feel fresh and exciting. I'll give it a 5.9, which means it's almost good.
Okay.
And I wouldn't even say no. I'm like, all right, I'll play it, I guess. Why not? It just went a little longer than it should have. It was uninspiring. So, that's Crown and Kingdom.
All right.
I mean, rondels are fine, but if I want to play a rondel, I'd rather maybe play Finca.
Yeah,
which is
makes sense.
has all these cool little fruits and stuff that you're picking up and delivering, and also has a simple concept and is also based around the rondelle for the most part. I don't know. I just felt like that one felt fresh, while this one, have fresh fruit, while this one did not.
Yeah.
So that's Crown and Kingdom.
There you go. Well, speaking of new and different and interesting, Steampunk Rally hit the table recently. This is a game from Roxley Games, and it is a steampunk-themed race game that uses tile laying or card laying and dice action selection. The object of the game is to get from one end of the racetrack to the other with your little crazy contraption. You are playing one of these personages, like maybe Nikola Tesla. I was Marconi in the game I just played. Marie Curie is in the mix somewhere. A whole bunch of different personages. And each one of these comes with their own 2 cards that start off their crazy contraption. And you begin with a draft phase. There are 4 decks of cards that have sort of different strengths. 3 of them contain possible pieces of your contraption, and another one is an action card deck. And you get one card from each of these into your hand. And you will draft one of them, then pass the remainder, and you do this until everybody has 4 cards. You can either spend a card to build your machine, and you have to match up so that it all makes sense as far as a unit, something that runs on the ground, needs to have a connection above it, and needs to connect to its cockpit in some crazy convoluted way, but in some way. You can also play the action card, or rather store it for later to be used later that round. You can turn these cards in for resources, dice that you will be rolling later, cogs which can be used for various mitigation rolls and stuff like that. And you continue until everyone has used 4 cards. Then comes the rolling phase, the action phase. You roll all the dice you've managed to acquire. You also have a couple of actions that you get every single round, no matter whether you have dice or not, which can earn you movement. It can earn you more dice. You'll then roll those. You assign these dice to various points, and you may need to have a certain pip total in order to use an action. And then you activate all this stuff. You can shield up. You can shore up your contraption. You can move forward. There's lots of hazards on the board that may cause your machine to take damage. And there are actions you can take that mess with all sorts of stuff. Lots of things. And then, if you take damage, if you have taken more damage than you were able to shore up, you got a little damage meter, you then have to discard cards for each point of damage you are below 0. So you start hucking pieces of your contraption out, and if you ever get all the way to your cockpit, you explode, and you'd have to take a penalty and go to the end of the line and sort of restart, and then you're pretty much hosed at that point. And the first player to get across the finish line wins. Or actually, somebody crosses, you go one more round, and whoever is farthest along wins the game. You have to ditch some of the dice. If you assign dice to your contraption, they don't just go away. You have to spend these cogs to reduce the pip total on those dice until they go away, or you have to use special actions, abilities to get them to go away. They don't just clear on their own, so eventually your contraption starts getting all clogged, and you have to either add new pieces to the machinery or get rid of the dice that are on your card. Neat strategy, neat planning, cool puzzle as you try and figure out how to make your machine go forward. I really like this game, and it's one that I want to check out all of the other personages, all the other abilities, the contraptions that are in here, and that's going to take a while. Steampunk Rally is a big thumbs up for me. I liked it a lot.
Oh yeah, I really need to get around to play this one. Everyone else seems to have played it, except me.
It's good times.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah?
Ever hear of Concordia Salsa?
I have. Please, tell me more.
You might be wondering why we sound a little bit dead here, but it's because it's the 3rd time I've recorded this part. This was in our last episode that then died, so we re-recorded it in this episode, which somehow somebody messed that up too.
So
Eric,
Tom, why do they call it Concordia Salsa?
I'm tired of explaining this, man. Salsa means salt.
Don't you know by now?
It's a dance and you dance in this game, and also it's spicy, and who cares? No one's gonna understand why we're laughing there.
No one. Yeah, no.
This is an expansion for Concordia. It adds salt. It's a wild resource that you can use in place of regular resources. Has no monetary value. Very cool. Wild is good. Not having monetary value balances it out, so you're not just like, hey, I'm the Salt King, because you actually need money in the game.
Right.
But it is a good addition. It also includes edicts or noblemen or something, I don't know, squares that give you special abilities. And you get these special abilities. You start with one at the beginning of the game, and you can get more as the game goes by. Every time you use the Tribune, you can get one. And the more cards you wait when using the Tribune, the more choices you have. These special abilities are sometimes one-shot special abilities, or sometimes a permanent one that might lower costs, like when you build new houses, it costs one less. Or, when you are trading, you can trade 3 types of goods instead of 2 types of goods. Things like that. And they're really cool. It adds a lot to the game. I love both of those very much. And easy to add in. It also includes a double-sided map, which, who cares? Because it's cool that there's more maps, right? I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah.
But if you said, what's your favorite map? I would say all of them. And if you said, what's your least favorite map? I would say all of them. Because I honestly don't know the difference between them. This one's Western Mediterranean, this one's Eastern Mediterranean, this one's Southern Mediterranean. They're Mediterranean.
So it's basically, it's more of a subtle difference between the map strategies here.
It is. Was there 2 maps in the original game?
There were, yeah.
Yeah, did you ever sit there and go, oh, I don't want to play on that side?
Right. I think one's supposed to be better for different numbers of players.
Yeah, that's true. But, yeah, it's not that big of a deal getting the new maps. But hey, getting more stuff, and this is a nice, solid addition to Concordia. So I recommend it. If you like Concordia, this is really easy to throw in. It's the kind of expansion I like. You add it. And I even taught new players to play the game with this expansion, and it didn't faze them at all.
Nice. Yeah, this is sitting on the shelf at my game group owner's house, and I just haven't sat down at it yet.
So that's Concordia Salsa.
Over the past few weeks, I've been pleased to receive new versions of classic games that I've really enjoyed. The first is called Circus Flohcati.
Yeah, it's creepy as all get out. I mean, super creepy.
Well, I was going to get to this. Okay, so Circus Flohcati is a Reiner Knizia game. It's a cute little card game, sort of a push your luck thing. You're trying to get sets of flea cards in different denominations. And the mechanism is that you've got a row of these in the center of the table, and you can either choose to draw a new card and flip it up, or you can choose from what's on the table. And you can continue to draw new cards until either you choose to grab one that's on the table, or you draw a card of a suit that is already out on the table, and that causes your turn to end. The more cards that are on the table, the riskier it is to push your luck and try and get a card that maybe you really want, because you're trying to get either trios of a number that you already have that earn you extra points, or ultimately you're trying to get the grand finale and get 1 through, 9, all of the denominations to do the grand show, and that is how the game ends when somebody's able to do that. And then you score up points. The art design, as Tom alluded to, in the original game...
Now, the original artwork was all cartoony and stuff.
Very cartoony, very... It was obviously a cartoon line drawing illustration. The new edition from Grail Games, this is part of their real small box line that included Too Many Cinderellas and Elevensies. They went for a photorealistic combination of humanoid figures and actual, literal flea heads. It's creepy as all get out. And my wife came along. She's like, oh, Circus Flohcati, ah! Because she was totally creeped out by these illustrations. The plus side is that it's now in English, and the action cards are easily readable, and you know what these action cards do. They're in the deck, and if they come up, you have to do something. The original German one, we had to, the wording was so similar, we had to look it up very carefully in the translation, so it's nice to have it in English. Art design, I really don't like it, and I'm glad to have it in English, but I don't know. I can't get behind the art design. An art design that I have enjoyed is the new edition of Odin's Ravens. This came from Osprey Games. You may remember there was a Kickstarter that failed.
Actually, Eric, before you jump in Odin's Ravens, I want to point out one more thing about Circus Flohcati.
Okay.
And that is, I feel like the design is also not good because on the numbers of the cards, they used, I believe, like 4 or 5 different fonts.
Oh.
And some of them, you're like, is that a 1? I think it's a 1. It should be a lot easier to see numbers on a game where you're playing at card numbers. I felt like this game kind of dropped the ball.
Okay, I missed that, but yeah.
All right, sorry. Odin's Ravens. Yes.
Odin's Ravens.
Failed Kickstarter.
Yes, failed Kickstarter. This crashed and burned epically, and backers who backed the game did not get a game. The individual in charge of this disappeared. The rights reverted back. It was a big mess. And Osprey Games has recently released their version, and they did send copies to all of the Kickstarter backers, much like Cryptozoic did with the Doom that came to Atlantic City. This is another classy move from Osprey Games. Very cool. The new edition of Odin's Ravens isn't just a straight reprint, though. They did sort of update all of the art. It's all new art, which is quite lovely. I like it a lot. There's two
really
suits that are very similar, but I think once you learn to differentiate them, it's not terrible. But there's like one that's sort of a purple, and there's one that's a dark red, and the illustration's different. There's a river through one. It's okay. It's fine. But at first glance, it's something you need to point out to your people and then say, yeah, just be aware of this. There's also wooden tokens, but they also simplified the whole thing. The original Odin's Ravens was a Cosmos 2-player release. And it had a series of races, I think 3 races. You were earning points per race. There was another way to sort of bank cards to earn points. That's all been done away with. It's now one single race. And you go down this row of cards. You lay out a bunch of landscape cards. They're cards that have 2 landscapes on them. And one player is going to be going clockwise around and back, and the other one's going to be going counterclockwise around and back. And you play cards from your hand to move to different landscapes. But you can also adjust these cards. You can play these Loki cards, which let you flip cards, move cards, remove cards, slide cards around, add cards in front of your opponent that may get you to cluster some of these symbols. And if you play a green landscape card, and you have 3 green symbols in front of you, you go all the way to the end of those 3. So careful play, careful planning is important, but it's a race. You're trying to move as quickly as you can, and then mess up your opponent after you've passed by a certain set of spaces. I kind of like the simplification, that it's much more straightforward, simply win the race. It's a game that I think my son would take well to. Whereas the original, I let the original go because there was this sort of 2-pile system. You could bank cards for later. You could score cards from your hand. The Magic Way concept. There was more layers to it, and my wife and I just didn't really enjoy it. This version seems more straightforward, but at the very least, having a nice production, very pretty art, and providing copies to the failed Kickstarter backers is pretty cool. So I'm pretty happy with the new Odin's Ravens. Certainly more than the art design of Circus Flohcati.
I don't know how I feel about this one yet. I've really been struggling with this.
Yeah?
I love Odin's Ravens. I think it's a great game. I played the new one and I was like, humph. Because it almost feels like a different game. I like the older one because it was like, okay, you won that leg. All right, let's do another leg. Okay, you won that leg. Let's do another leg. And I like that. This new one, it's like, it's just one race and it's done.
Yeah.
And it's more streamlined and it's probably better for people. And had I never played the original one,
yeah,
I'd probably be okay. And I hate this because I'm always getting on these people's case like, get over that stupid old game. That new one is better.
Yeah.
But I like the original one better. I do. I feel like there was more nuance. And you know what I missed most is being able to play. I missed the Magic Way.
Yeah.
And I missed being able to save some cards so you can do a super turn.
Yes.
And I do understand that saving those cards in front of you was a horrifically annoying thing to teach new people.
Yes, it was very hard to tell, to even explain the concept.
So I understand this, and I'm not saying they should do it any other way, but if I find a copy of the old Odin's Ravens, I'd play that one first, I think.
You could, in theory, play those rules with this new set, too.
Could you do the Magic Way? You probably could. Maybe, but
could.
whatever. It's not a big deal. It's fine. You'll like it, folks. All right.
It is a good game. The basic concept is still there, and I think it's worth exploring.
Carson City has always been one of my favorite worker placement games. This game kind of made a big splash when it came out, and then wasn't talked about very much. Last Essen, they released Carson City, the Deluxe version.
Ooh.
I managed to grab a box of it. Now, this is Carson City Deluxe Edition in the same way that the Puerto Rico Deluxe Edition was.
Oh.
Where it's nice, they upgraded the components, and it's good, but it's not like Settlers of Catan Deluxe Edition or Ticket to Ride Deluxe Editions, right? It's a nice one. Essentially, they made it a little bit nicer, and they added in, like, several small expansions. And then you could buy more upgrades. I think they did a Kickstarter with wooden pieces. And, of course, I incorporate all that stuff because, hey, it's wooden pieces.
Right.
Why would I not do that?
Okay.
I just have to say, I'm still loving on Carson City. I really enjoy it. Have you played it?
I've played the original, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating game to me because you can, like, get in someone else's face. At the same time, though, you should only do so when it's really expedient to you and it doesn't hurt that person that much. And I like that. Like if I say, I want this spot, Eric's like, I'm going to fight you for that spot, partner. And then Eric wins. Oh, that's terrible, but at least I get my guy back.
Yeah.
And so next turn I have an extra worker to use. So that's cool. I mean, I'm not happy because I wanted that spot too. And Eric's kind of jerky for forcing me, his former partner, off that spot.
Yeah.
But it's not the end of the world, and Eric would not do that unless he really wanted it, because there's a chance that I would win the duel, and then he would have wasted a worker that turn.
Right.
And you could try to rob someone else's thing, and you'll get some of their money, which will hurt them and help you. But it's usually not worth it unless they're getting a ton of money, in which case they're kind of a rich person anyway, so hey, they can lose some. I believe Robin Hood taught us that. Stealing's okay. Sure. If the mark is rich.
Uh-huh.
I think. But anyhow, I really am enjoying this. I like all the little expansions. They included a horse expansion, which is good. They have the if you don't like the rolling the dice, that expansion, that was in the original set, I believe. It's kind of like the expansion for Kingsburg. Where if you don't want to roll the dice for the king's help every turn, you use tokens. Well, they have something here. When you fight, you can use a token instead of rolling the die to see who wins. And they also, I believe the original game there was like 8 or 9 rolls and you could switch a couple out maybe. I think there's like 30 in the new box.
Oh boy.
Well, there's a ton. Maybe it's not, maybe it's like 25, but whatever. There's a ton. So every game can be different, but I'm telling you, I'm still loving on this game. This game is cool. It has a very strong Western vibe to it. But it's also a really good worker placement game, and it doesn't go that long either. Yeah, it's going to my collection.
Nice.
I mean, I already have Carson City in my collection, so it's just replacing it with a deluxe version.
There you go.
Mr. Vassal. Tom, can you comment on the latest Essen releases?
Where do you keep all your ties?
If I threw water at you during a game, would you yell at me? And now the Dice Tower will authoritatively, definitely, possibly, maybe answer your questions.
Tom, which way to the bathroom?
Daniel asks, in your opinion, what stops board games from becoming popular in a country? In a place like Australia, the home of everything poisonous or deadly, why has board gaming not taken off? The average person is subjected to monopoly, but it stops there and no further. Is it purely because of the nice weather outside, or does manufacturing, shipping, stores, parts, production, etc. drive up the price that much in distant places like Australia? Also, any reason why we have so few conventions? I think you've named a lot of the culprits there, Daniel. I don't think there aren't many board games produced in Australia, if I'm not mistaken.
There's some Adventureland games and stuff, but yeah, for the most part. He mentioned the weather, but it's not so much the weather, it's the amount of people in a compressed space. Right? The northeast of the USA has a ton of conventions. So does the Midwest, because they can have a convention and a ton of people can come from a very small amount of area. Australia is not a small country land size wise.
No.
but has a very small population when compared to most countries with that same land size.
Well, you'd think Sydney, though, would have, a good mass of gamers.
It's possible, and there's a lot of Australian gamers, so it depends where you are, because I don't think board games aren't popular in Australia. I know lots of Australians who like games and listen to the show and so on. But let's say most conventions, like our biggest convention in America is in Indianapolis. Those people aren't coming from Indianapolis. A few of them are.
Yeah.
But they're coming from Chicago and from New York and from Miami and from wherever Eric's from.
Kalamazoo.
Hartford.
Hamden.
I know, but I'm thinking of a big city in your state.
New Haven.
But, I mean, there's just so many more people, and I think that's it. Also, yeah, the weather, who knows? And, right, you're also distant from the rest of the world. So it's really expensive to get games over there. Unless you're producing them
I think that's
yourselves.
the big issue. It's just importing everything.
Ken says, while listening to an episode of the Secret Cabal episode, the Secret Cabal Express. Sounds like
Is that like the food court version?
the Street Cabal. Okay, anyhow. I heard them mention that legacy-style games won't catch on. First of all, I like to point out that you're listening to their opinion. That's problem number one. Anyway, they said that legacy-style games won't catch on because it's too hard to get the same group of gamers together in order to play the game. Right. Thanks for that information. He said he played through Risk Legacy, and I'm sure that would have been a problem for us, except we didn't play with the same people through the whole thing. Whoever was there played the game, and the people that played multiple rounds of the game didn't play the same character each time. You played who you got, and the game, although influenced and changed by previous games, was its own individual new game. Do you feel a legacy game needs to be played with the same players playing the same character each time? Well, we have a total of 3 that I've played. Risk Legacy, yes. You can jump from player to player. You can teach new people and say, hey, this is the way the world looks right now.
Yeah.
Deal with it. And it's not a big deal at all, really.
Well, the disadvantage is in the metagame. If you're actually playing Risk Legacy to try and win more times than anyone else, you physically being there for more games than other people increases your chances of being on that board.
But I don't think anyone was playing it for that. I always looked at each game as its own separate thing.
It's true. I mean, but you get rewards each time you've signed the board.
Well, that's important. Yes, I agree on that.
Okay.
And time stories, yes, absolutely, you have to play with the same group of people. However, that one's easier to do because you play like 3 or 4 times and you're done.
Well, yeah.
Pandemic Legacy's partially in the middle, but I would lean towards you should play with the same group of people. Just because I think you would lose something.
There's certainly an overarching plot that you want to be part of.
You don't have to. You could bring someone in halfway and say, this is what happened. This is where Superman showed up and helped you guys out.
Is that in November?
I'm saying obvious, not spoiler things here.
Oh, right, yes.
What month are you in, Eric?
I'm about to start October after a double loss in September.
Oh, yes, you told me about that.
Yeah, sad times.
I am not as sad.
Yeah? Okay.
You still haven't had to open that box yet, though, right?
Haven't had to open the box. Only 2 losses in a row, but we'll see how things go in October.
Okay, but anyhow. So I would say it depends on the game. And so for Pandemic Legacy and Time Stories, I think you should. Although if someone quits like 4 or 5 games in, you could either A, just play with one less player, and that doesn't affect the game at all, honestly.
Yeah.
Or maybe bring someone in, but that would not be ideal. What do you think?
You could bring someone in. As long as they were familiar with basic Pandemic, you could say, yeah, here we started here, and over the course of these last 4 games, this is what's happened. Because a lot of it's like layering on expansions. So if you're comfortable adding on expansions to Pandemic, yeah, you should be able to catch up. But you miss the plot. You miss the development of things happening in real time if you jump all the way to May or something. It's not ideal, but it's possible. Kenny has a question. Kenny will be turning 30 in a few weeks, and based on how quickly we work through these questions, I hope you had a great birthday, Kenny. Kenny loves board games and just started to get into it. He'd like to do something special for his birthday and thought about doing a board game party. There should be about 8 friends coming to the party and wants to know if there are game-related food, themes, decorations, games, etc. that he should be looking into. Just a general question. Or should we split up into 2 groups and play games or try to play games that include everyone? Have you ever had a board game theme party? If so, what did you do for it? I, Kenny, had for my 30th birthday party, my wife threw me a board game themed party.
Hey, did you make a geek list about this?
I did, actually. Actually, I didn't do it. One of my friends, Mark Casiglio, did. And did a geek list about coming to my party. And it was not really a surprise party. I sort of knew something was going on because one of my friends spilled the beans. But I didn't know how many people would be there. And it was a huge shindig that my wife threw. And it was a great time. And my game group pooled together and got me a game. And we played all sorts of stuff. We ended up not playing all the same thing, because it seemed unwieldy. We had a couple of larger group games, but mostly people split up into smaller groups and played smaller games, and it was a blast. As far as ideas for game-themed food, I'm always fascinated by people who recreate like Settlers of Catan boards out of salsa or nachos or cookies. Some sort of game-themed cookie, that would be awesome.
Okay, now, I noticed here, Kenny said, in this question, Eric skipped it because it's not super relevant.
Yeah.
Kenny said, your next podcast would include top 10 games for 7 players. That's good timing. And I thought,
it wasn't.
When did we do that? So I looked, and that was 24 episodes ago.
Which is why Kenny is now 31. I hope your upcoming 31st birthday will be great, Kenny.
So our recommendation is this. Don't send us letters that are really important time-wise. Because we're going to screw that up. I apologize. It's been a long time since we got to these questions, apparently.
It's a long list. Anyway, but just in general.
You can make a cake. Do you remember Joa, Eric, from DiceTower Con?
Yeah.
He always got something, and he got those dice. Remember, he had a bakery make little dice cakes?
Oh, yeah.
They were really cool. They were like little cakes that were like square piece of cake that had white icing on them, and then like pips on each side. And that was a cool thing. I imagine it wasn't a cheap thing.
No.
I don't know. Not enough people ate them. Well, doesn't matter how many I ate. But I collect dice. But that was a cool decoration. If you look for dice, you can find decorations with dice. Or if you have like extra pieces or something, you can often use those for decoration. I was just thinking this the other day because I was looking through the Spielbox magazine, which is not really a critical magazine. Eric gets it because he wants the promos in them.
Yeah, although lately the promos have not been games I have, so that's less useful.
Yes, and it has a lot of articles, but it has cool pictures, and I'm like, oh, well, you can cut those pictures out if you ever want to decorate for something. So that's a benefit to having a Spielbox. Scrabble letters are decorations that you can use. You can buy a cheap Scrabble set at a thrift store, and then you can use Scrabble tiles to do something. So stuff like that. A thrift store would be your friend there. Go grab some games and use the pieces for that game as decoration somehow. Turn the life spinner into a punch bowl somehow. I don't know. All right. Lots of questions here from Eric. Eric says
not me.
He wants to keep his business local. Yeah, well, definitely not you, because you want your business to be worldwide.
Worldwide.
He says he's from a small town where allowing money to flow out of the community can actually be felt by the businesses. We currently have no local stores. The closest store that sells games. The closest store is an hour away. It sells games. Walmart sells games, but you are both familiar with the type of games they offer. They actually have a decent few games.
They're getting better.
With the internet market being so easily accessible, would it be worth a person's time to even attempt to start a small business selling games? Dice Masters would be huge in an area like this. Who doesn't love that game? Well, considering this guy probably has already started the store and it's failed since asking this question. I'm always very hesitant to encourage someone to open a game store. it can be done, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
you shouldn't do it, but you are not going to make money for a while, probably.
Well, I think the real question is, do you want to own a game store, or do you just want more opportunities to game in your community?
And if it's the second, do not open a game store. Seriously.
If you are dedicated to making an excellent game store and you want to go into retail, yeah, I mean, you can do it. And the board game renaissance is in full swing. There are people out there that want a game. And if you are willing to do the right thing and make a game store that is a beacon in your community for the board gaming hobby, you can do it. And I wish you well. But know that it's a lot of work. And, it's not something you want to go into lightly just because, you know what, I really like games and wouldn't it be fun to run a game store? Because it's not fun all the time.
It's not fun a lot of the time.
Yeah, I had some lovely discussions with my friend at the Labyrinth Game Store in D.C. about her end-of-year accounting. She was not having fun.
Does anyone have fun with end-of-year accounting?
I don't know. I think some of the people that play 18xx games.
Oh, I should hire one of those guys to do my taxes.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Call up the Puffin Billy hotline.
I would actually recommend, do you have a Barnes & Nobles around you? They have a lot of great games.
They do, and they're holding game nights in the month of March.
I haven't heard, super positive things about that so far, though.
It's been, not bad, but very...
lackluster.
Lackluster, yeah, like only one table playing the game and, not really a big event.
Oh, that's not his only question, no. He likes to visit local game stores when he goes to larger cities. He says this is a chance to see and hold the box. While Cool Stuff does a great job at showing the box and your videos are showing the components, sometimes you've been pleasantly surprised after receiving my shipment with what arrived in the box. So he's saying we're worse than what's in the box. Okay, cool. When he's in these stores, he looks at the game price, then he pulls up Cool Stuff and finds the game he wants is $5 to $20 cheaper. Would it be inappropriate for me to point this out to the store owner and ask if he or she could match the price? Or would I come off as a complete jerk that the owner would want to leave their store? I don't want to be rude, but I hate walking out of stores saying thank you and being empty-handed after they have clearly watched me become excited about seeing and holding a game. What? Oh! I gotta go.
This is amazing. I must leave now.
What's the proper code of contact here?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, this is a tough one, right? And I felt this way with other things. For example, I was buying a new video camera a few years ago, one of the ones I'm actually using now for the DiceTower. And I really just want to see these cameras. And I was at the mall and I was like, I'll go in and look at the cameras. So I went in, it was behind a counter. So I asked the guy if I could see it. I looked at it. I was like, well, I really like this camera. But I want to know how much it cost online. So I was like, and he knew that's what I was doing. And I knew he knew. And he just glared at me, and I kind of snuck out of the store, looked at it, and it was like $300 cheaper. And I was
yeah, man.
And I bought it online.
Yeah.
But I will say this. That I didn't feel as bad because I had not gone in that store with the express purpose. I happened to be at the mall, and I looked at it. If I had gone to a camera store and I asked the guy to help me, and he helped me, and he showed me, and he went over to different features, I'd buy from him even if it was more expensive because I would value the time he had given me and the help he had given me for that purpose. And I think it's the board game is the same way. If you feel like going in there and you're valuing the time that it has, how helpful have they been to you? Do you use that store for other things? If there's different factors in play there, then that extra cost is worth it to you. I buy some games from my local game store. They're not as cheap as Cool Stuff, that's for sure. Yeah. But I do it because I appreciate the game store. So, but
I try and if I was looking at a big game and said, you know what, I really don't think I want to buy this one here, but I do when I'm visiting a game store try and buy something, whether it's an expansion to a game I've got that I've been looking at, or sleeves, supplies, dice, something. You know, if I'm spending some time browsing around, I will try and walk out of there with something for the clerk's time and effort and chatting.
Do you do that with every store you go into?
I try to. I mean, if I'm going somewhere regularly, but like if I'm traveling and I visited a game store, yeah, I'll usually try and buy something.
No, I'm not talking about
even if it's
game
something
stores.
small.
Like, do you do that with every store you go to?
No. But I'm not passionate about, say, the stationery store.
I am.
Well, all right.
Because they have stickers you can use for game labeling boxes. Okay.
We've had this discussion already.
Yeah, I'll be in any store. This is about fishing equipment. Huh.
Those tackle boxes are perfect for putting my Crossmaster figures
right,
in.
And those weights could be used in a game.
They could.
Name a game store and I'll find something in it.
Yep.
Except Sports Authority. Sports Authority's not too hot. Oh, no, the rubber worms. Okay, so anyhow. But the question was, are you a jerk? And I would say, kind of. It depends. I would not even look it up in front of them.
Right.
Because, again,
I'm fascinated by the question of, do I ask for the discount?
I think you could do that. It depends. I would be very cautious to do it if you didn't know them very well. But, like, if you were regular in a store, I'd be like, hey, I really want to help you out. And these games are so much cheaper online. Is there a way that you can give some sort of discount or whatever? Because then I would rather buy them from you. But the price is more expensive. What can you do?
Right.
That's what I would do in that.
They're not going to match it. I can't imagine a world in which they would be able to match it just out of the blue. But you could have the conversation. I just looked at this online. It's $30 cheaper. Is there anything? Do you have a loyalty program? Is there something that we can do to get a little bit closer? There's possibly some wiggle room there, but you can't go up and say, look, I found a competitor's ad online. Can you match it? I just don't see that working well.
His last question. He says Dice Master is currently one of his favorite games. I hope it still is. 24 weeks later. He watched me and Jason play online. He thinks it's fun to watch Jason get excited, and I should let him go instead of reeling him in when he gets excited. Guys, you have not seen him when he's not reeled in. It needs Eric has.
I have roomed with the guy.
He needs to be reeled in. Okay, so anyhow, he says he wonders what the longevity of the game will be. I feel pretty confident that you will be able to play this game when you're a 99. The dice seem like they'll last a while.
Yes, they will not self-destruct.
Yes, and I know that's not the answer you want, but I want to make that clear. If you are having a great time with the game, it doesn't ever go out of your collection unless you get rid of it. So keep that in mind. Because there's a ton of sets out now already. I mean, I believe there's 3 DC sets, 2 Dungeons & Dragons sets, a Yu-Gi-Oh set. I believe there's 4 Marvel sets, and there's at least another Marvel, another DC coming on the way, and a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle one coming. So even if they stopped after all those sets, that's like 10 plus sets. I think they're still planning to do it, and he's worried about does it adding new groups dilute the collectability? I never care about the collectability. I don't care if I use rares. If you said, Vassal, I'm forcing you to play with only commons, I would. I don't care. I think it's fun, and I think you could be competitive playing with only commons.
The game certainly works without the higher level rarity cards.
Well, Eric, we got to move on from questions.
I think we do.
But do you think we will someday finish and catch up?
Oh, no. Only if everyone stopped sending questions.
Yeah, but I don't want people to stop sending questions.
Exactly. So, no, we're never going to get to the end.
Yeah, all right. But let's get to the top 10.
It's a Dice Tower Top 10.
The Dice Tower's Top 10 list is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. Cool Stuff Inc. Cool stuff in stock at coolstuffinc.com.
Hey! Okay, now, I'm a little confused here.
Yeah?
Because people seem to be very confused about the topic.
Right.
And I understand that some people thought it's games we want to be reprinted, although if I had wanted to say that, I would have said games that we want to see reprinted.
Right.
But then people were like, well, what games? And so I guess I understand that, but so many times when I'm reviewing a game, I'm like, this is a reprint of an older game, and this reprint's really good. That's what I want to talk about here.
Right. I think people were taking, if you take the word reprint literally, that could be anything that has been through a print run, and then they go back and they print it again. That is a reprint.
Yeah, okay, right. But
if it's a straight reprint that is exactly the same as the first version of the game, why would we be singling it out in a top 10 list?
All right, so
Well, they really reprinted that excellently. That was exactly the same as the first edition. Well done. That's my number 1.
So what I did for my list is I picked reprints of games that I thought were substantially an improvement upon the original edition of the game.
Yep.
I also eliminated sometimes where the reprint was such a major change from the original game that it felt like a different game. For example, Descent 2nd Edition and Descent 1st Edition. Yeah, there's not. I mean, they're kind of. It's a completely different game. Twilight Imperium 3, Twilight Imperium 2, the same thing. Sometimes it's so different that I have to say that's a whole new game. So are we ready?
I think so.
Let's do it.
Number 10.
My number 10 is going to show up on Tom's list in just a little bit, so I will point my gun in his direction and just wait.
Okay, see, you're not even trying to be subtle anymore.
Nope.
My number 10 is Thunderstone Advance. Now, this one skirts that line, but Thunderstone Advance and was a reprint of Thunderstone, and it was pretty close to the same game. I mean, they made some changes. They made it look nicer. They restructured the cards. But since you could actually mix the cards from the games together and play them, yeah, we're going to go with pretty much it being the same game. They just made minor changes. It was basically streamlined Thunderstone. They added an extra action you can do. They made the whole thing just look more professional to the point where once they printed enough sets of Thunderstone Advance, I stopped I got rid of all the old Thunderstone because I couldn't handle the two cards together. It was just, I'm not terribly OCD, but it was bugging me.
Yeah, well, I mean, the art design is cleaner. They made a couple of minor changes to the rules. They added a board that just sort of keeps everything more organized. Everything is improved in small but useful ways from Thunderstone to Thunderstone Advance. And that's why it's my number 5. But we'll get to that later.
Well, you didn't italicize mine.
Number 9.
My number 9 is going to show up on Tom's list in just a little bit, but I think I've got some corruption, so I need to deal with that first.
My number 9 is Eric's number 10. Cash and Guns. Now, this one I debated about putting on the list because Cash and Guns 2 had some changes from Cash and Guns. It kind of was like, I don't know, are those changes great enough? But it's essentially the same game. They got rid of the Bang 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 card.
Yeah.
Which when I first heard about it, I was like, what? But now after playing the game, wow. It's so streamlined. It's so much better. Then also, it's 8 players. Yay! I also like the new artwork, although that's controversial, but I like the new artwork. So my number 9 is Cash and Guns.
It also changes the division rule. It used to be that, let's see, how did you, if you couldn't split everything evenly, stuff stayed in the table more often. Yeah, that's it. Everything had to be split evenly when you split the loot. But now you simply go around the table and choose individual bills so that the payout seems to happen more. You get something more each round, and I like that change. I think there's a pretty significant change from first to second editions. And originally this wasn't on my list, and Tom sort of reminded me how much of a difference this one is. I really like the new version of Cash and Guns.
You're right, because that old one had that thing like, okay, there's 4 20s, 2 10s, and a 5, and 3 people won.
Right.
Split it as evenly as possible.
Yeah, and then the rest stays in the middle, and then you get like a super payout in round 3 or something.
Yeah. All right. My number 9, Eric's number 10, Cash and Guns.
Number 8.
My number 8 is Snowtails, which is my favorite of the Lamont Brothers games. The Lamont Brothers produce something every year at Essen, and they sell out, and occasionally that product gets reprinted by someone. And I think the best of the reprints was Asmodee's edition of Snowtails. This lovely racing game with the Huskies, and then Renegade just recently essentially jumped off of the Asmodee production and kept everything the same scale so that you could actually combine sets if you wanted to make super deluxe tracks. But those two productions of Snowtails are both really, really nice and a lovely reprint of the original smaller scale Lamont Brothers printing of Snowtails. My number 8.
Cool. I'm glad that one did well, though. I'm very happy with that.
Yeah.
My number 8 is a very new addition to the list, and this is the new archaeology game from Z-Man Games. They just reprinted this like a couple weeks ago. Archaeology was originally from Adventureland Games. We just talked about them from Australia. And it was a great little card game, collecting sets of pieces of archaeological finds, and then you put them together and woohoo, I have a treasure, and get points and things like that. It was a very solid little game. The new version, much nicer. They fixed the points. They added a little bit of variety to the game, but beautiful artwork, high quality cards, a cool looking box, strong. This is easy in my collection. Love this game. That's Archaeology.
Number 7.
Next up for me is Walkstar. This is the cooperative game about running a Chinese restaurant. Now, the actual production of this was not the smoothest of paths, a little rocky production from Game Salute, but you have to remember where this came from. The original edition of Walkstar was a very small press edition game. Not many people could get a hold of it at all, so just bringing it to a wider audience is a big deal. The new production added an electronic timer, sort of streamlined the rules a little bit. I'm actually very happy with the final product, even if it missed the mark a little bit by what it was supposed to be. And I think they've actually fixed some of it in subsequent reprints. I'm really happy that Walkstar is available to more people now. It's a great game, a lot of fun, and a nice improvement from the original editions. My number 7 is Walkstar.
Interestingly enough, my number 7 is also a Game Salute reprint, and that's Poseidon's Kingdom. Don't often pick Game Salute for great reprints, right? But in this case, Poseidon's Kingdom was really cool when it came out, but it was hard to find, and it was neat. But the Lamont brothers used those resin figures that would break if you dropped them. Not resin, but porcelain. Yeah. I don't know what they are. I always call them Christmas ornaments.
Some sort of resin.
But it was a really cool idea, but it was hard to get. It was a very beautiful, nice-looking production from Game Salute. I was like, yes, this one's available. Hooray! And so, my number 7, Poseidon's Kingdom. I should also mention here, before we go any farther, I deliberately left special edition, deluxe edition,
like deluxe editions, yeah.
Because that's not the point of this list.
I sort of did that as well, because a lot of those are simply upgrading the components. They're not really adding gameplay, and I sort of focused on gameplay for this, which is one of the reasons why I didn't do Poseidon's Kingdom. I wasn't sure how much of a difference it had from the original printing of the game.
It didn't, but I actually thought the production values were good enough to mention it, so I'm actually including production values in there, too. I'm just deliberately skipping deluxe versions.
Right. This was shortlisted for me. It's probably in the low teens for me as well.
Number 6.
My number 6 is that Grail edition of Acquire, the 1999 Avalon Hill edition, using plastic pieces to differentiate the different hotel chains. Really, just it was clean, it was simple, but it really stuck out, and you could spot the different hotel chains from a distance because there are 3 different sizes of these plastic towers that fit on the tiles. It was just a really well-done edition. Lots of plastic. Very nice. Number 6, Acquire, the 1999 Avalon Hill edition.
I have to say, Eric, I wonder if I should have put this on my list. It didn't even occur to me.
Nah.
Because I was thinking, Acquire, I'm not putting out a stupid 2010 edition of Acquire's piece of
yeah, no.
But I forgot, the 1999 version was amazing!
But I was hesitant to put it on because it's not like people can grab it now.
Yeah, that's true.
I think everyone who has it is holding on to it.
But we didn't say top 10 reprints available today.
That's true. It's true.
My number 6, unbelievably, is higher on Eric's list. the only time this has or will happen.
I think so.
Number 5.
My number 5, if you go back in time, you'll hear Tom give all the reasons why I put Thunderstone Advance on my list. It just a significant improvement over the original. In fact, so much so that I am currently selling all of my original Thunderstone cards. I finally came to the conclusion that I don't need them anymore. Especially once AEG did their Worlds Collide set, which brought up a whole bunch of the cards that were from the original set. It's just so much better. I mean, it's still good. The original's good. Please buy it. That I don't need the original cards anymore. It's a terrific improvement. Thunderstone Advance, my number 5. Tom's number 10.
Huh. I threw mine away.
Oh. Well, I haven't had anyone put a bid on it yet. It's in an auction.
Well, it wasn't that. It was just that I kept some of the pieces from the original Thunderstone game, so I didn't want to sell, like, bits and pieces of it.
Oh, interesting.
All right. My number 5 is the brand new 2015 version of Mission Red Planet. Yes, I wanted them to make this. They made it a bigger board. They added a little satellite moon that goes around Mars. They changed the little discs that rolled everywhere to little plastic astronauts. They changed it and made it a cool graphical overlay. It's a really solid looking game. Minor rules changes, but major component changes. I've always liked Mission Red Planet. Now I have a copy that looks amazing.
Number 4.
Number 4 for me is Robo Rally. We sort of mentioned this an episode or two back.
I want to hear you explain this one.
Well, there are some things that aren't as nice. I mean, the original editions of Robo Rally had pewter pieces. However, I think the gameplay improvements were what really made this for me. The newer Avalon Hill edition gives you a player mat. It sort of makes everything a little bit clearer as far as what your phases are, how much damage you've taken. It adds a timer, which I think is important, as some of AP-prone players could be sitting there staring at their cards for a while. It just adds a mechanism that can speed things along a little bit better. It removes the rule of the virtual robots that could be confusing for new players. I think as an entry point into the game system, the newer edition makes a lot of improvements, even though it's now plastic pieces instead of pewter, and the quality of the boards isn't as great. Just getting it back in print was a win, and the gameplay improvements are a win, and that's why it's on my list at number 4, Robo Rally.
I don't know. I'm going to disagree on this one. I'll tell you why. First of all, it added to mats. Whoopee-doo. Everything is thinner. Everything is chintzier. The cards, ugh. I think, the flags.
The flags are cool.
Like the little, I like the flags. And I might have kept the player mats. I don't remember. But the rest of it, the problem is there was that version in German. The Amigo Spiel version, which is amazing. Except it's not in English. But other than that, it's amazing. I don't know. This Avalon Hill from that Acquire they did Acquire, Cosmic Encounter, Battlelore, and Star Wars Queen's Gambit, and whatever. And then they were like, you know what, guys? Hey, we've been doing 2 good games. Knock it off. Slow this quality down. You like that board? I want it thinner. Yeah, all their new stuff is just bleh. All right, my number 4 is the 3rd edition of Fury of Dracula, which is fairly similar to the other Fury of Draculas. It's different and streamlined, but it's essentially it's the same game. It's not the exact same game. There's changes, but I think they really streamlined it to the point where it's just almost perfection. The first Fury of Dracula is crazy complex. The second one streamlined it. The third one streamlined it even more. I really like the new artwork and the look, except the board. The board's a little bland, but the rest of it really well done. They took the same game and just kept streamlining it, and I think it's to the best point that it can be. So, huzzah for Fury of Dracula.
Number 3.
My number 3, Tom alluded to as a huge surprise. It was his number 6, and that's Cosmic Encounter. This is sort of a textbook example of how to do a reprint. I've played the original Eon edition of Cosmic. The quality's not great, and what Fantasy Flight did with this game in sort of streamlining it putting all the best bits from previous editions of the game and really packaging it into a solid whole and then expanding it and making it bigger and better and greater. That's the way to do it. And it's a really a nice way to repackage and redo a game. Stellar, because it's cosmic. My number 3, Tom's number 6, Cosmic Encounter.
Yeah. Everything Eric said. I'm not putting this as number 1 on all my list, but I could not put it on my list.
Sure.
They did what I wanted them to do. They made the game amazing. It was tough, though, because the Avalon Hill version of this was really nice. Just there wasn't enough content.
Right.
And also no one could ever figure out how to put the ships inside the thing.
Mm.
My number 3 is Through the Ages. This is the new reprint. I'm assuming this is what you mean also, Eric, number 9?
It is, yes.
Through the Ages was a good game. It put CGE and Vladishvatel on the map, but no one ever said great components. They were dinky little cards with little discs that you moved on these cards. It was like, all right, fine. I'll get over these components because the game is just that good. Well, the game is not only just that good, the game is better. They streamlined parts of it, made it better, but the components are so much nicer. They show pictures of buildings and things now. I like to have a civilization with a bit of a flair. If the game oozes that much theme, the artwork can do a little bit better. And good quality cards. And a nice box. Yeah, this one's a really obvious choice for me. Through the Ages.
It's funny because I put this on my list solely on gameplay. I don't have the physical version, and so I've looked at it, and I totally agree. Quality of the components of the cards, illustrations, is a huge step up. But it was mostly gameplay for me in putting it on my list.
Number 2.
Number 2, you knew this was showing up, Merchant of Venus. Another textbook example of how to do a reprint. If you're going to take a classic game and make changes to it, not necessarily knowing how well those changes are going to go over, also maybe if there's some sort of kerfuffle about which version of the game should be reprinted or not, it's a good idea to give players an option. And the Merchant of Venus box includes not only the revamped Fantasy Flight, new rules, new overlay, shiny chrome version, standard edition of Merchant of Venus, but also the classic edition that people fell in love with from 1988. And to have both copies in the box is really fantastic. And the production is nice, it's big, it's chunky, it's colorful. It's a great edition of the game. And to give you that choice and have the original in print, plus you get a bonus new version too, is pretty cool. Merchant of Venus, my number 2.
I don't know. I still liked your handmade edition.
My handmade one? Yeah.
My number 2 is self-serving, but I don't care because it's accurate, and that's Sheriff of Nottingham. No, I'm serious.
Yeah, who decided to reprint that?
If you looked at Robin Hood, which was the last printing of it, Sheriff just blows it out of the water, beats it up, and then drowns it.
Okay, yeah.
And Heart and Dick Grinds was cool with suitcases and all, but they cut out the most annoying part of that game, which was this kind of save some cards at the end, and if you happen to have the most, maybe you'll get some extra points for them and double the points. It was a little convoluted, and cutting that out helped out a lot. The graphics are great. The whole thing just has a really nice production feel to it. And I think numbers back me up on this one because it's done really well. So, yes, it's part of the DiceTower Essentials line. I should mention that, but I don't care. I wanted this to be a great reprint, and I think it is. Sheriff of Nottingham.
It is very pretty.
This was not on Eric's list, though. He's not a sellout like me.
That's true.
And finally, number 1.
Number 1 is the game that I would argue put Stronghold games on the map, and that's Survive, Escape from Atlantis. Another classic game that Stronghold sort of brought together, took the best parts of, and then made a production that was just stellar. The thickness of the tiles being different for the different terrain types that make up this island was a fantastic choice. And creates this multi-tiered structure that you start with at the beginning of the game and then gradually sinks as the game goes on. A terrific entry point for families into the hobby. Just a really nice product to put together. And I've heard Mr. Bonacore talk about this, that it still continues to sell better and better each year, which is really neat to see for this, older game getting a new life. And that's really the definition of a reprint, a successful reprint. My number 1, Survive, Escape from Atlantis from Stronghold Games.
My number 1 gets its spot because of just how different it is.
Yeah.
And that is Catacombs. Yeah. The original Catacombs was neat. It was a fun game. It was like, a flicking game in this black box, which looked like it was made so that people would not buy it, with artwork that was not very impressive. The whole thing had a dull look to it, but the game was fun. It looked like the backgrounds for the different arenas were made up of Microsoft Paint backgrounds.
Yeah,
filled them
lots
in.
of tiling.
Gift wrapping paper. It was just bad. But the game was fun. This new game is amazing looking comparatively. The gameplay is basically the same, although they streamlined it a bit and made changes. That's like my word of the day is streamlining, because that's a big deal with me for reprints. But just, it's that much different, and that is why it made my number 1, because it was that much different than the older ones. It was that much better. And again, that's why I give Eric props for the number 6 Acquire, 1999. It was that much different from the original one. And you'll always find people who will come to you and go, no, the original one was better. But
right, I like the 3M version.
But the fact is, these new ones blow the old ones out of the water. Hey, but let's see what our contributors think.
Hey everyone, it's Mark, and my favorite reprint has got to be Space Hulk by Games Workshop. It's on its 4th reprint, and every time it gets better, and it gets more expensive, but components are just outstanding. The sculpts are great. The cardboard bits just keep getting better, so I wonder when Space Hulk 5th edition will come out.
And the winner for the Barry Doublet Award for Best Reprint goes to Survive, Escape from Atlantis. With its 5-star components, its 10 out of 10 gameplay mechanics, and its 99.9 out of 100 for family fun. The minus 0.1% is just because some children will cry.
Hey, this is Graham from Four Corners of the Board. My favorite reprint is a tough call. Do I go for something that made a game more playable, like Descent 2nd Edition? Or should I go for something that blinged out one of my favorite games, like the Kickstarter edition of Orleans? Or even bringing back a classic game I never got to play before, like Fury of Dracula? I think, though, I will have to go with the 10th anniversary edition of Ticket to Ride. It took a great game and made it into an heirloom game.
Hello, Ignacy Cywczek, Portal Games.
And Stephen Bonacore, Stronghold Games. We are Board Games Insider.
And the best reprint for me is the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. I discovered this game a couple of months ago, and I simply love it.
I am going to absolutely pick that same game. I played the original version of it, and it was just wonderful. It's great to see that it got a reprint, and hopefully this game will live in many people's collections for a long time. Fantastic game.
Hey, this is Paul Owen of DiceTower News. If I were to pick the best game that's ever been reprinted, my first thought was Acquire. But in fact, I actually prefer the original 3M edition over every subsequent reprint, so I don't think that counts. Instead, I'll say Goa, A New Expedition, the 2012 reprint of the 2004 original game. I've only known the new edition, but I count it among my top 10 games that I most like to play. So, my favorite reprint? Goa.
Marty and Tony from Rolling Dice and Taking Names, and for me, the best reprint is going to be Cosmic Encounter. I just read the history of that game, how it was created in the 70s and all the iterations it went through before it was finally picked up in the 2000s by Fantasy Flight, and now it's once again a huge game. Tony, what's yours?
Mine's going to have to be Android Netrunner, the game that brought us really hard back into spending money on collectible card games. Even though it's a living card game, thank you so much for bringing it back and emptying my wallet.
Jonathan from the Snakes Cast. We've seen a lot of reprints get a lot of work at Snakes and Lattes. The new Tiki Topple reprint is fantastic, and we're getting a lot of work out of that one. I wish I could see some broader distribution for it. But by far the reprint that I'm happiest to see in recent years was Reiner Knizia's Samurai. The fact that it scales so well between 2 and 4 players, the fact that it's great for couples, great for people who are new to games, makes it a real workhorse for us at the cafe.
Hello, André from Tacos Reviews. Oh, best reprint. Why couldn't it be best second edition? That would have a lot more to talk about. But anyway, the last edition from Fantasy Flight game is called Samurai. It is a beautiful, gorgeous game about it's a non-theme actually. But the game itself is very tactical, and And Fantasy Flight has just really improved everything about the game, from scoring and component-wise. Samurai is a great game from the all-famous Reiner Knizia, and it still works great today, even 18 years later.
This is Brian from Cult of the Old. While Cosmic Encounter is a close second, I'm going to go with the drool-worthy plastic edition of Acquire, made by Avalon Hill, I believe, where the plastic tiles fit over spots on the plastic board with the cool, colorful buildings that you could more easily identify stuff visually. This is just drool-worthy and beats the heck out of any of the cardboard editions, which I'm not faulting, but the plastic one stands above and beyond the others.
Hello, Top 10 Reprints with a Broken Meeple, and I'm going to choose the most recent one that I've got into, which is the Game of Thrones LCG 2nd edition. It was impossible to start the 1st edition because of all the expansions. It was bloated beyond belief, and the barrier to entry was as high as the wall itself. And essentially, this has now opened itself up to a new audience with streamlined rules and revised artwork and revised cards. It's enabled me to get into what has so far been a very enjoyable game, and I look forward to more packs coming out. Game of Thrones 2nd Edition LCG.
Thanks for listening. Promotional consideration has been provided by game publishers in the form of review copies of games. This episode, number 449, was recorded on March 9th, 2016. Coming up next week, if you could go back in time to prevent a game from being published, what would it be? Find out what our contributors have to say. Support for this podcast comes from listeners like you. Thank you for your continued support. And speaking of support, the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund is dedicated to providing support to members of the board gaming community in their hour of need. Find out how you can help at jackvassell.org. The Dice Tower is produced by Tom and me, with production assistance from Jason Thompson, Itai Perez, Eric Matthews, and Rob Searing. Our theme was composed by Timothy Pinkham. Lasagna Eating Cats provided by the Garfields of Arlbuckle. And hosting is provided by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games at great prices at CoolStuffInc.com. We love feedback. Visit the Dice Tower Guild at BoardGameGeek.com. Email us at thedicetower@gmail.com, or follow us on Facebook. And of course, you can find more from the Dice Tower Network, including Board Gamers Anonymous, Board Game Corner, The Snakes Cast, Rolling Dice and Taking Names, Board Game Brawl, Dukes of Dice, and Dice Tower Showdown at DiceTowerNetwork.com. Until next time, from all the gang at the Dice Tower, have fun gaming. You know, if I really wanted to mess with your audio, there are lots of other things I could do.
So you're saying that if I was saying a normal sentence like this, you could mess with my voice and do all sorts of things to make it sound like someone horribly was speaking, or basically just mess with it in ways that would really annoy me and make everyone laugh at me consistently?
Why would I do something like that?